on the name. Hi, everyone who's joined. My name is Aaron. Not a doctor yet. Still a PhD, still a PhD student. Still on that journey. In my final year now, analyzing and writing up my data. So my name is Aaron Akpu Philip, from Nasarawa State in Nigeria. I'm a public health practitioner. Worked in the space of development in the NGO world, working around HIV programs, youth programs for the past 10 years. My first degree was microbiology, studied in Nasarawa State University in Nigeria. And then I went on to do my master's degree in public health promotion under the Commonwealth Shared Scholarship in the United Kingdom, Leeds Beckett University in the UK. Went back home to work again in the field of development for a year, and then got another scholarship, the Queensland University of Technology Postgraduate Research Awards, to do my PhD within the School of Public Health and Social Work in Queensland University of Technology, Brisbane, Australia. I've been doing my research for the past 3 years, I suppose. Yeah, since 2019 when I started, and I am still on it. So don't mind Ade Damola and Samuel if they call me doctor. I'm not yet a doctor. I am very much like everyone. I mean, there might be doctors here, but I'm not a doctor yet. So I'm still on that journey. So that's the brief about me. Thank you.
Wow, that's really awesome. I know today we are going to Australia, but can you tell us about your UK experience and why UK first?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I guess why UK first? It's because I got funding to go to the UK. If I had gotten funding somewhere else, I mean, coincidentally, when I got the funding to go to the UK for my master's, at the same time, I had gotten or secured a scholarship with, it was the WHO, the World Health Organization Tropical Disease Research Scholarship. It was meant to be tenable in Zambia, and it was still in public health promotion. That would have been for 2 years. The scholarships came at the same time with the Commonwealth Shared Scholarship, and I opted to go to the UK for, I mean, different reasons. I wanted to go outside Africa since I was, in Nigeria and in Africa. I wanted to, have a taste of what it was like in the West. And so that was, my drive for the UK. And yeah, the UK experience was really good. I enjoyed it, but I think for the most part of it, I was, I would say, homesick. I couldn't wait to go back home for some reason, that was in 2016, but I just couldn't wait to return back to Nigeria. A lot of my friends, were applying for PhDs at the time. I've got a friend who's just had his PhD confirmed, and at the time he was applying for PhDs around, and I said I didn't want to do a PhD. Actually, I did not want to do a PhD. And so I just wanted to go back home. So it was just about, getting the degree and going back to, I'm a development worker, working in the space of development, the third sector and the NGO world. And I just wanted to go back home and just work. Although I attempted a few scholarships while in the UK, but I wasn't that enthusiastic about it. I was just, okay, let me just throw in an application and see what comes out of it. But the UK it was exciting. I enjoyed the experience of getting that foreign degree, with a lot of African friends I had in my class at the time. So it was good. But the moment I finished, I wanted to go back home. I remember when I touched down the Abuja airport, I was so excited. Even it felt like a breath of fresh air. It was so, it felt, I was returning from the abroad where people wanted to go. I mean, a lot of people wished to go, but I mean, I just couldn't wait to go back home. It was a strange feeling. I mean, I had never gone on a plane or gone into an airport or anywhere. So my first experience outside Nigeria on a plane in an airport was my Commonwealth Shared Scholarship. But I couldn't wait to get back home. I mean, I got back home and I didn't get, I wasn't getting what I wanted. And then I felt, no, I need to leave again. And then, and then I applied for the scholarship. Unfortunately, I was fortunate again. And then, yeah, I've been here in Australia for the past 3 years plus. So, yeah, that's been the experience.
So, okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Quite interesting. I think most people always forget the downside of traveling abroad. And I think I heard of a case of a lady that said after paying all her school fees, she said she's lonely, she doesn't have a boyfriend in the UK, that she's quitting. So she left everything in the UK and came back home to Nigeria to start a business. So yeah, cases like that. I heard a lot of cases like many mental depression and all. So concerning your Australia program, like the scholarship, because I know that Australia has thousands of scholarships. However, their website is quite sophisticated. So how did you heard about scholarship first place?
To be honest, I heard about my current scholarship, or I stumbled on it while looking for scholarships in the UK. So, like I said, I studied on the Commonwealth Shared Scholarship, and when I decided that it was time for me to secure a PhD scholarship and go to a PhD, I wanted to go back to the UK because that was where I was familiar with. That was the terrain I knew. That was where I studied. And so it was, first instinct was, okay, go to the UK. The US wasn't in my radar because I'm very terrible with mathematics. And I mean, I always failed maths. And so writing, the thought of GRE was not in the bargain. I just couldn't take it. I couldn't write that exam. So Canada, I didn't know about Canada. I mean, I knew about Canada, but again, I never applied to any Canadian school. I just wanted the UK because the UK was where I knew. So there's this website that I always use, and some people might be familiar with it. It's jobs.ac.uk, www.jobs.ac.uk. It's a popular website for searching jobs, postdocs, scholarships at all levels. And so the website was www.jobs.ac.uk. I shared that in the comment section. I'm going to do that again. And I find that very helpful website in searching for opportunities. So that was the one I used at the time. And it was really, really helpful for me. And so that's how I came across my current scholarship. And then applied, got a supervisor. Yes, and I was fortunate to be here, and I've been here for the past 3 years now on this journey.
So how was the application process like?
So because it's a PhD, the first step of the process was to get a supervisor. So I had to write a supervisor and say I wanted to do a PhD, shared my background with the supervisor. Actually, I wrote a few supervisors, but I wasn't fortunate to get a supervisor through that process. So what I did, which is strategy that I have been advocating for a while, is sometimes when you write supervisors, because they are busy and for many reasons you might not get replies, so they might say, hey, I don't want students at this time. What I did was to look for the postgraduate research academic. So an academic within the department or within the school that was in charge of, the postgraduate side of things for PhD students within the department. I sent my proposal to the person, the woman at the time, with my CV, and I said, hey, I'm looking for a supervisor. This is my background. Are you able to circulate this across academics in the school? She did that, and my current supervisor reached back to me, and then I applied. So the way it goes in my institution and many institutions is if you want to do a PhD or, for instance, a master's by research, you will have to get a supervisor first. And that's by, emailing them cold emails, basically. And personally, I have shared templates. I've shared the email I used to write supervisors, the template I actually used. I've shared that across my social media platforms on LinkedIn and my Twitter specifically. I'm not sure I shared on Instagram or Facebook. Yeah, but I've shared that on my pin tweet. And so people can have a look, just go check for people who might be interested. So I wrote a supervisor course through using that. And when I got my supervisor, you now work together with the supervisor to strengthen your proposal, and then you can now apply for the admission.
So
animal nature sometimes. I'm hoping that is not one of the Russian guys, isn't it?
yeah, it looks like a Nigerian name. I didn't accept the guy at all.
Seen animal nature
I
sometimes.
removed the guy already. I've removed him already anyway. So, so basically, unlike other countries of the world, I think Australia scholar admission process is quite different. I think some schools accept all year and admission, while others have their different options. So, is there a particular website that focus mainly on Australian universities?
There are tons of websites. There is a website I shared, and I'll just check. I'm just checking now. There is a website that you can get. Let me just have a look now. That you share opportunities about Australia. So study Australia. Yeah, so you can, this is one website, and I'm going to put it in the chat box now. This is one website you can get information about Australia. And I'm just gonna, there's another website that has information basically about scholarships. So for instance, if you're interested in applying for scholarships in Australia, you just simply go to that website, type in your course and the particular state in Australia that you're interested in, and then it will give you suggestions of scholarships that you might be able to get. And so there are a few of them, and I'm just going to share this one again in the chat box. So it is, I wish this was on my studies. Okay, so hold on. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm going to share this again. It's a second website. There is another website that is for one of my friends that he's running. I'll just check that again. Sorry, I didn't hear that. The line is kind of breaking.
Someone has a question. When mainly professor, is it compulsory to have a thesis proposal?
If you're looking to do so if you're looking to doing a master's by research or a PhD, it is advisable that you have a proposal, a research proposal. But sometimes the supervisor might already have a topic in mind. So a supervisor might advertise a topic, and then you just email the supervisor with your CV to say, I have capacity to work in this research area. But most times supervisors will still ask you to write a research proposal if you're looking to doing a master's by research or a PhD. And the reason is because they need to see, how you write just to get a feel of what your capacity is in terms of writing. So most times they will ask you to write a proposal for a master's by research. And most of the scholarships, talking about scholarships, most of the scholarships in Australia, the very popular ones are for research programs, so master's by research or for PhDs. So and I've shared a third website on that. So about 3 websites that will be able to help you in terms if you're looking for opportunity scholarships here in Australia. Those websites will be very handy. Feel free, of course, for those who are here, if you follow me on Twitter, I retweet and share a lot of information on my timeline as well about scholarships and opportunities here in Australia. Sometimes I share, and most times I retweet from my friends who are here with me or some other people who share scholarships around in different parts of the world.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, so someone is asking for your Twitter and LinkedIn profile name. So I think I would like to ask about between the period of your application for applying for code emailing and sending the scholarship out and the time you get the admission, were there a series of interviews?
Series of what? Interviews?
Yes, interviews there.
So usually it depends on the supervisor. So if you're looking to doing a PhD or a master's by research, once you have secured a supervisor, the supervisor usually will hold a meeting with you to ascertain your capacity. So you'd have shared maybe a research proposal or your CV, or you'd have discussed a research project. So two routes. There are 2 routes basically. If you're looking to doing a master's by research or PhD, and I'm saying a master's by research or PhD because mostly the scholarship that are here in Australia, it's for mostly they fund research, very big in funding research. And so there's a popular scholarship called the Research Training Program, the RTP scholarship. And I'm just going to put this. There is a video on my website. I'll talk about this briefly as well. There is a video. I think they said that most people said you remove them.
I wasn't sure of their name, so they can try and join again. I'm very sorry. I don't want us. I want them to act again. Sorry, they can. They can join again. About 2 people actually, like the Animal Nature guy, and they have funny names, so that's why I wasn't so sure.
Yeah, just that might help. Okay, so I've put the title of the program in the chat box. Research Training Program. I guess I'll attend to the questions as I go along. But what happens is there are 2 routes if you are looking to applying for the research training program in Australia. So my thoughts are going everywhere. To start with, I'll start from the top. If you want to apply for scholarship and opportunities in Australia, there are 3 scholarships that are mostly popular, or 4 scholarships. And I'll come down to your question, Adedamola. The first one is the Australian Awards. That scholarship, at the moment, I haven't seen it being funded again for Africans. In the last couple of years with COVID, that didn't, Africa was kind of excluded in a way, but Nigerians used to be funded as well. But the caveat with that scholarship is immediately you finish your degree, you will have to return to Nigeria for, I think, 2 years. You have to leave Australia and go back to Nigeria and work for 2 years. And even before you get the scholarship, you need to already be working in the public or private sector. You have to have experience in the public sector. And most times they will even need letters from employers and all of that. That's the first scholarship. The second one is the one which I've talked about, which is a research training program. That scholarship, the way it works is that it is coordinated by, so the government literally gives money to universities to say fund research. And then universities administer these funds in the way they decide to do it. So they give out these monies, either they decide to fund the tuition, health insurance, and stipends of students or relocation allowance. They decide how they want to do it, basically. That's the second scholarship. With that scholarship, you need to get a supervisor because it's basically a research training program. You need to get a supervisor. Either you go through the route. Now, the two routes I was going to talk about is either you write a supervisor with your proposal to say, I want to apply for the research training program in your university. And this is my research proposal. I've seen that our backgrounds align. Of course, in the cold email I've said, I've shared my own personal template of my cold email that I use to contact supervisors on my pinned tweet on Twitter. You contact them and you say, I want to, request for supervision. In that case, you have to share a research proposal and your CV, of course. Sometimes you might not have a research proposal. Sometimes you might just have a research idea. And then you are able to organize meetings, provide, say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Are we able to set up meetings and talk about this even more? And then I can strengthen my ideas and come up with a proposal so I can apply for this. That's the first route. The second route is supervisors will have topics that they will advertise on the university's website, or they already have something they are working on in their lab or in their group or already working as supervisors. And then you can write them to say, okay, I want to be part of this project. And then again, you talk with the supervisors, and then you apply for the admission, and then you apply for the funding. The way it happens in some universities is when you're applying for your admission, you simply just tick a box to say, okay, I want to be considered for this scholarship. In my own case, that's what happened. So I filled in my application form, I ticked the box to say, I want to be considered for the Queensland University of Postgraduate Research Award Scholarship. My admission came, and then I went into what they call the scholarship round, and I was considered, and I got awarded a scholarship. So that's usually what happens with getting supervisors. So the interviews that you mentioned, Damola, you might get the supervisor. Usually before they accept you, they will just hold a meeting. Sometimes it's not like an official interview, they just have a chat with you to find out, okay, you've sent me your CV. Do you have the capacity to actually do this research? Well, what's your background? That was what my supervisor did at the time. She just emailed me and we just talked about my background, where I was, what I've always done, what I was doing currently, my, professional and academic background generally. She was satisfied with that. And then she supported me to get 2 other supervisors. Those supervisors helped me to look at my proposal, strengthen my proposal again. And then we applied for the funding, applied for my admission and my funding. In some universities, I haven't heard of universities that actually will do like a proper interviews with you when you apply for. Most times that interview happens with the supervisor. Once you pass through the supervisor, because it's a higher degree research, then you go through you just go through the application process for your scholarship and the admission. So that's it. There is a third scholarship called a Destination Australian Scholarship. And that one is usually not a fully funded scholarship. I think they offer, for instance, in some cases, 15,000 Australian dollars. So most times it's not a complete, fully funded scholarship, but the research training program is usually the biggest one, or the bigger scholarship, where you get funded basically with almost everything. And so you can get your tuition paid, you get your stipends every fortnight. In Australia, we get paid our stipends every fortnight. So every 2 weeks we get paid, as against, a month that happens in places like the UK, Canada, or the US. We get paid every fortnight in Australia. Pretty much that's how everybody gets paid here. That's the system here. Every fortnight, every 2 weeks you get paid. So some schools some form of the funding under the RTP might fund they'll usually fund your school fees, fund your stipends, and health insurance. Some will say, oh, we're just going to fund your school fees. You have to sort out your health insurance and your stipends yourself. I've got a friend who is coming in for a PhD in one of the universities in the city where I am, and he's just been funded with the tuition fees. For me, I got tuition fees, I got stipends, I got health insurance. I have somebody again who I think would have come in already to Australia. She got tuition, she got stipends, she got health insurance, she got a relocation allowance of about $3,000. So it varies. So if you're really interested in Australia, look up the research training program. And I'd just like to, put in here, because most times when I speak to people, on spaces or on webinars or whatever platform I speak about scholarship and opportunities, you find that people say, I don't want to, yes, I want to do a master's, but I don't want to do a master's by research, or I don't want to do any research master's. I just want to do a simple master's, because there's this assumption that a master's by research or a research program is very difficult. But it's not entirely true, because my argument is, if you go through I assume that everybody on the platform here are Nigerians, but if not everybody is Nigerian, apologies, I'll use Nigerian, the Nigerian context as an example. That if you do a bachelor's degree in Nigeria, most of the courses we do in Nigeria, we do a project at the end of it. Even before projects in the sciences, I know we do SciWest. I don't know if that's still applicable, but I'm not sure that. But we do a SciWest, which is like an internship during your degree, and during that process, you also get some experience. So if you do a project in a Nigerian university, you will be able to do a master's by research, because okay, can you hear me? Okay, so what you did, if you did a bachelor's in Nigeria and did a project, you will be able to also do a master's by research. So just trying to encourage people, because this is what I get most times. I hear people say people are very, very scared of doing a master's by research. There's nothing out of the ordinary. If you did it, you went through the 4 years in Nigeria and you did a project, you will be able to do a master's by research. Pretty much the same process where you go through, you do your courses and you take a project at the end, or you do a research component, and here you'll have more of the structures and more opportunities to do that research here. And so I think that if you are here and you're thinking of, oh yeah, master's by research, the research training program is just funding research programs, and you just want to do that, I would encourage you to think again, because most of the funding that are here in Australia in terms of this is mostly centered on research programs, master's by research or PhD, which is the research training program that I've mentioned earlier. I can see a couple of questions coming in. Tai has asked that when emailing a professor and attaching a research proposal to my mail, is it important that my research proposal syncs with the advertised position of professor? Oh yeah, of course, definitely. That's the only thing you're going to use to entice the professor or the academic. It needs to sync. You need to show that similarity. And feel free, like I mentioned, to look at my pinned tweet on Twitter. I use the same name everywhere on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I use my 3 names, Aaron Akpu Philip. I'll put that in the chat box again. I think I put it earlier. And then once you search me, I have a picture with, the yellow background across all my platforms. So just check my pinned tweet. You'll see the threads I've written, and even the cold email sample that personally I've used. I've shared that on that platform. So yes, it's important that your research experience aligns with this, because what you are doing, you're trying to convince the academic to take you as a student. So you have to show that your research experience and whatever, there has to be some similarities with your experience with that of the supervisor, the prospective supervisor. Someone said, I guess the RTP scholarship varies in different Australian schools. Can you elaborate more on RTP? Yeah, so like I mentioned, the research training program is money that is given by the government to Australian universities to fund research. The Australian universities now decide to administer these funds in the way they want to administer it. Some universities will say, on the research training program, we will just be funding just the tuition on this round, or we'll be funding the tuition, the stipends, and the health insurance for students on this round. Different universities decide to call it different names. They might subsume the RTP funding into other types of funding within the university. So for instance, if they get funding within a scholarship round, and the money they have is enough to just fund tuition, or they decide that they are just going to fund tuition for students, for prospective students, they might have other universities allocated funding that will complement the RTP scholarship, that will also cover, for instance, stipends and health insurance. They will put those funds together and maybe give it a different name. But if you look at the breakdown, you see that the RTP's tuition offset will also be there. So different names, different universities. But if you just do if you just put into Google, Research Training Program Australia, you will see it will pop up for different universities, and you can read up more about it. Different universities open up at different times. So if you have interest in studying universities, you will have to check. If you're doing because it's a research program, don't be limited by any time. Just go ahead and look for supervisors, because the supervisor will be able to advise you. Once you get a supervisor, they're able to advise you about the opening time where you can actually file in your applications. But most universities, I got in in July. Some universities you start in January or in February, depending on how it works for the research program in the universities. So if you're thinking of that, just go ahead and start looking for supervisors on the university website, and begin to email them now if you are that interested. So that's a touch. That's just the brief. That is just what the RTP is about. I hope that shed some light. What are the skills that can give someone an advantage in the application for scholarship in Australia? So many skills, of course. Your academic degree is very important. Do you have a first class? Do you have a 2-1? Do you have industry experience depending on your field? It's very important, of course, because when you're applying for admission, they look at it as a whole package. So it's not just about your first class degree. You might have a first class degree and not even get funding. Somebody might have a 2-1 and would have very rich experience, might have publications. Publications is very important in some contexts, but it doesn't mean that if you don't have publication, you might not be able to get funding. And touching on Bemi's question, did I have publication prior to my? Yes, I had publication. I had 3 publications that were not strong at all. They were not even in the field I was going to apply for PhD. So I had publications in my field of microbiology, my first degree, but my PhD was centered on HIV, and it was a social research, was looking at the HIV adherence and persons with disabilities, but I didn't have any publications in that area. I have people currently who have secured admissions, PhD admission. In fact, I have someone who is coming in February. He's gotten scholarship, but he does not even have a publication. Sometimes when you apply for admission, they ask you for a writing sample. You're able to give those the writing sample can be maybe your undergraduate thesis if you're going for master's by research, or your master's research if you want to go for PhD. You can just share that, the project or the thesis you've written. That's your writing sample. They just want to see how well you can write, academically. So again, publications so like I mentioned, going back to the question, your academic degree is very important. If you have publication, is very important. Your professional experience is very important. Not also forgetting or sidelining the significance of volunteering experience, very, very crucial as well. Some people think that if you've got volunteering experience, it's not paid, so you might not be able to, put it on your CV or show that it's important. Volunteering experience are very, very crucial as well. So those are skills that I think when you highlight on your CV or on your application package, they tend to sell you. If have you done online courses, those are also very important. You might not, and that's what if you're looking to applying for a school and you don't have maybe some experience in the field, very important. Just go on Udemy, go on Coursera, look up for free online courses that are in that field or similar to what you want to do, and then you do it there. You do the course and put it on your CV. I remember when I was applying for my master's degree in London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine and different universities in the UK at the time, what I did was I would go to the university website and look to see if the university was offering any free courses. I would go to the platform and do the course that university was offering and put it on my CV. Because, if an academic was looking at my CV and say, this guy has done the course that we're offering, it helps to also sell your story again. Your statement of purpose and all of the essay is very, very important. You might have a very brilliant CV, you might have a good experience, but if you're not able to capture that or sell that story in a good statement of purpose or in your essay, then again, that sells you short. So again, if you look at my pin Twitter, I've shared tips, or guidance on how to write, good statement of purpose. So I'm just going through those questions because I find that responding to questions sometimes it helps to send a message on what are the chances of admission. If a potential supervisor has accepted you, how do one keep in touch with such PI? Once you're accepted by the supervisor, that's usually the first stage. It's a very, very good move. You get accepted, but sometimes getting accepted does not guarantee funding because, for instance, in my school, what happens is if a supervisor accepts you, every faculty in the university, so the research training program funds scholarship across every faculty you can think of: marketing, health, law, justice, anything, entrepreneurship, chemistry, physics, everywhere. There's funding for every field, literally every field under the research training program. So if you get accepted by a principal supervisor, in my school, for instance, and in some other universities, sometimes they cannot guarantee you funding, but it's a first important step, because if you don't even have a supervisor, most times you might not even get funding. Because if you get a supervisor, it means that the school has capacity to has capacity for your research to be undertaken there. So what happens is, for instance, in my school, once you get admission, once you get a supervisor, you work with the supervisor to apply for your admission, or to apply for admission and scholarship. But that is not guaranteed, because sometimes the school gives quota to every faculty. So they say, in this scholarship round, for instance, we are going to have 10 scholarships in the Faculty of Health. We're going to have 15 scholarships in the Faculty of Law. We're going to have 5 scholarships in this faculty because they had more. So you have, and then within that faculty, they'll say, okay, in the School of Public Health and Social Work, we're going to allocate 5 scholarships. In the School of Nursing, we're going to apply, for instance, 10 scholarships, like that. So there are those quota systems. So that's why the more you put on your application package, the better. And that's why some supervisors, in fact, some supervisors are very strange. And some supervisors will say, if you don't have publications in specific journals, they will not even take you, because they say, oh, it's a very competitive process. They don't want to go through that stress and not get funded. But again, it's not all about publications. Like I mentioned, people get scholarships. I still have people have come in. People are still coming in without publications. My publications were not even strong at all. They were what you would call publications at the bottom of the food chain. But I got funded. I had a friend who had over 30 publications. He didn't get a scholarship until, he'd been trying everywhere. I mean, there was a lot of push, a lot of encouragement. Finally, he got a scholarship here in Australia, and he's resumed not long ago. So you might have all the publications in the world, but you might not still have funding if you don't know how to sell that story appropriately. So can a 2-2 grade, can a 2-2 grade get funding? And can one get PhD directly from BSc? Yes, you can. That's very possible as well. I think I have one of my colleagues who just graduated. Her PhD has just been confirmed. She doesn't have a master's degree. She has just an undergraduate degree, BSc. But then bear in mind that she's a domestic student. But yes, you can get a PhD directly from BSc. And that's very important. But you know that if you have to get a direct PhD, then your application has to be, very solid. Sometimes you need those publications, or you need to show extra work experience or research experience in the field. Sometimes you might not have publications, but you might have very good research experience in your field. That also sells your story effectively. 2-2, yes, I've heard about people who have. I don't have anybody in my corner or somebody that I know directly, but I've had engagement with somebody who said, oh yes, this person got a 2-2 and they've gotten scholarship in so university. So I know that that is possible as well. So if you've got a 2-2, it's about strengthening other or amplifying other parts of your application package. So begin to think of, for instance, do I want to publish my undergraduate thesis? My project, do I want to publish that? That might be good to sell your story. Sometimes you might not have even published it, but you might begin to have, you might see a journal article and you're already writing it up. Put it under the publication section and write it as, manuscripts under preparation or under review or something. Then they know that it is. And then when they ask you, you're able to share the manuscript that you're already writing. So that also works. Look at your research experience. Some of those things we used to do. I remember as an undergraduate in the microbiology lab, we always used to go for a lot of practicals in the lab at the time. Those are very valuable research experience that you can amplify on your CV. But people say, oh no, I did it in 200 level, I did it 100 level, I didn't even know what I'm doing. Go back and look at what you did and write those research experiences. They write, was it, what particular project were you working on at the time? Capture it on that research experience. And so it's about amplifying sometimes what we assume to be very little, but we don't know are really big if we sell that story effectively. So if you've got a 2-2, not a first class, or a 2-1, it'll be good to strengthen some areas of your publications, some areas of your application package as well. I think I've run through most of the questions that have been in the chat. Yeah. So yeah, I think I've spoken mostly about all of the scholarships. Again, I need to mention that, sorry. I need to mention that if you're applying to Australian universities, one roadblock, I like to call it a roadblock because it is not what you find that it's what you find in other universities around the UK, Canada, and the US. Australia, most Australian universities, they use an agent system. And I have very personal reservations for that system. But then it's the system that works here for most Australian universities. Most Australian universities will want you to apply through agents. If that is the case, some universities will insist that you apply through agents. And that was my case. I had experience applying to scholarships. In all of the scholarships I've applied for, I applied myself, everything, my visa. And so when I wanted to apply to Australia, they said you have to apply through an agent. That was an alien system to me. It felt, what does that even mean? But my school insisted I had to apply through an agent. Unfortunately, I had a horrible experience with my agent, very, very horrible experience that I had to complain about the agent to the school. Unfortunately, not something tangible was done. But when a student later on was going to apply, I encouraged him not to even use that agent. We used another agent that was still accredited by my school, but the agent was in South Africa. Fortunately, that agent didn't even charge that student. But my agent charged me, I think at the time, 80,000 Naira. And I applied. Fortunately, I got the funding, but there was a lot of back and forth with the agent. Now, that is one thing. If you're looking to apply to Australia, keep in mind that some universities will insist that you apply through agents. If you see a university and the university has asked that you apply through an agent, there is a way around it. Ask the university if you're also able to apply yourself. Some universities will allow you to apply yourself. Some universities will say, no, we need you to apply through our agents. If the school insists that you apply through agents, go on the university's website and check the accredited agents that are there on the university's website. If you have 5 of them, email all of them and ask them for instance, ask them their process, ask them their price. Some of them will charge, some don't charge. So you need to ask them. Unfortunately, again, this is where I have a problem and reservations because most Australian universities do not regulate the services of these agents. And so these agents go about charging exorbitant prices to potential applicants who most people don't even have that money. I mean, people want to apply for scholarship. Where are they even going to get 100,000 Naira to give an agent or 200? I mean, inflation has gone up now. The naira is, the prices are, really high up now these days. Some agents charge as high as 200,000 naira. How is somebody who's going to apply for admission get 200,000? The only reason why I could spare that 80,000 naira back then in 2019 was because I was working. I mean, many people, are not working. Some people are straight out of school, or some people are not out of school, but they have jobs, but they don't make enough. So how is somebody going to cover out 80,000 naira? Some don't even see that in a year. So or on their job. So hard. And that's where I have a problem with the system, where universities do not regulate how much these agents charge, and then the agent go about exploiting potential students. So, and that is why you need to email all of them and ask, what are your charges, so you can decide on who to use. Or you ask the universities, can I apply myself? Again, sometimes ask the universities, yes, I am Nigerian, but am I able to apply? Say, for instance, you've contacted most of the Nigerian agents, and some of them are charging very exorbitant prices. Ask the university that, because you're African, are you able to also use agents that are in the African region? Say, if they have agents, for instance, in South Africa, in Zimbabwe, or Kenya, can you use the agents in those countries? Sometimes you find that the agents in those countries, some might not even charge you at all. Some will charge you something that is very, very little compared to, our almighty Nigerian agents. Some agents are really good, but some are just dedicatedly horrible, and it's just unfortunate. So it's a very unfortunate system. Sometimes this is the Australian universities do use that system so that they can check, because they are agents, maybe in terms of fake documents and some other things, they are able to help the university mitigate that. But then some agents just go above board. So keep in mind that some universities will ask you to apply through agents. If they ask you to apply through agents, ask them, can you apply yourself? Or are you able to use other agents in the African region? But again, ask the agents their prices. Some might charge you, some might not charge you. Unfortunately, I wish Australia didn't have that system, because the UK, the US, Canada, you don't find such trouble, but it is the structure.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, thanks a lot, Scholar Heron. I would go back to some of those things you've discussed. Like, there was a time I actually had Australia in my mind, and as at that time I did all the mailing. Maybe I would say I was not advanced, not as sophisticated as now. So in contacting most of those professors, they were convinced with my work, but their last sentence in their mails has always turned me off. They always end every of their statements with, scholarship is highly competitive. And I'm a person that, before I can apply anywhere based on my income, one of the things I always do is I would always look for a supervisor that will give me a green light. And if a professor is telling me that scholarship is highly competitive, I see that as maybe a red light. So I don't try it. But from discussion now, I can see the reasons why they actually use the word highly competitive, because they go to fight out for the funding. But how well can one very well you have convinced a supervisor? How well can you be sure you've convinced a supervisor through your mail chat?
Yeah, I think it's easy to start. I'm glad you've had a change of mind now that the competitive part. They'll always say that because they want you to know that the funding is not in their hands. In some situations, though, there are supervisors that have funding themselves. So there are supervisors that apply to get grants. When they get grants, they recruit PhD students or recruit master students. In that situation, the supervisor controls the money and the grant. So in such areas, so there are other ways. So aside the RTP I've mentioned and all of those scholarships, there are also scholarships that are administered by supervisors themselves. So in that case, the supervisor calls the shot. So the supervisor can tell you clearly, I have this money, I'm looking for a student. if you satisfy this, I am giving you that. They tell you straight because the money is from them. They have that resource themselves, right? But in the case where the supervisor is not having the money, the funding is from the university, they'll always draw your attention to the fact that, hey, this is a very competitive process. I mean, every scholarship is competitive. They always tell you that, this scholarship is very competitive. Know that, the competition is really high, but we can apply. It's a simple way to know if you've convinced a supervisor. If you've convinced a supervisor, the supervisor will want to talk to you. The supervisor will say, okay, you've sent your CV, you've sent your proposal or whatever documents, you've sent your transcript or whatever they want to see. Once they are convinced, they want to maybe hold an interview with you or have a chat with you. Once they've had a chat with you and they are satisfied, they will tell you, okay, that's fine. You can include my name on your application, because you always write the name of the professor, the name of the academic in the application. Once they've tell you, once they've given the go ahead to write there, you know that they are fine with it. They are fine with you, because once you've applied and their names are there, the university sends your application package to them to say, these students have included you as a supervisor. Have you had any engagement with this student? They will confirm that yes, they have, and they usually write a statement. So they usually write a supporting statement when you've applied in some universities, and then they put that together with your package and send back to the graduate school, and then it goes through the admission process. So once they've said, put my name, then you know you've convinced them. There's no hidden thing about that. If they are not satisfied, they say, oh no, I think you're a good match, but I don't think you're the person I'm looking for. Unfortunately, maybe you can check back again if you maybe publish more papers. I have a friend who contacted somebody in my school recently last year, and she said, hey, this is a very competitive process. I need students who have actually published in Q1 journals. If you please, can you maybe publish some more papers and then get back to me? So some people are very, very straightforward. So if you've convinced them, they'll ask, they're fine with you writing your name in your package. So I think that's it.
Before you invite Bimi Habas, let me ask this question shortly. One of the things I noticed during those days when I was applying to Australia was that some of the vacant positions that lecturers actually publish, because I actually saw some, I think, is it Q Australian something university. They are openings that technically an average Nigerian didn't study those courses. They're like more like an outshoot. There are some courses that they are like outshoot, or like, let me just say it, a practical version of maybe one of the course. How well can you convince such? Sometimes when I look at all those opportunities, I'm just like, I didn't do this actually, but I did a little of it. How well can one convince? How well can one convince? Do you understand that kind of situation scenario? I'm doing this because of other applicants.
Yeah, and that's totally fine. That is why you are a student. I mean, I'm doing a PhD now, but I'm still a student, isn't it? It means I'm still learning, right? And
yeah,
there are a lot of things that when I started I did my master's in the UK. I picked my master's thesis now, and I look at it and I say, how on earth did I even get a distinction on this thesis that I wrote? I got a 70. But because my knowledge have grown, because I have learned more, I have gotten more feedback from supervisors, from friends, from all of the different workshops, and now I look at it differently. And that's okay. The supervisors know this. They know that you are applying for a master. If you are applying for a master's or PhD, you're applying for a postgraduate degree because you don't know it all and you want to know. So what they want you to do is to come to them and say, this is what I know. And based on this, I know I have the capacity to learn this one that you said you want to this one that you have now. I know I can learn it because I have learned this one. And because they are similar, I have the capacity to do that. And so you amplify that in your essays or in your package to say, I've got the capacity, I've learned this, I've learned A, I've learned B, I've learned C, but I have seen that there's more room for growth in learning some of these applications that have been highlighted in this. But because of the experiences I've got in A, B, C, D, I'm confident that, of course, I can do this. And I've done project A, project C, project D. I've done this, I've done that, referencing on your CV and everywhere. And that's all you need to convince them. They know you don't know it all. I mean, even the professors, they don't know it all. And that's why, in fact, when you start your journey, you see that some of the things you'll be doing will be helping the professors to also learn more. Because, I mean, it's research, it's a new area. That's why they're getting you to do work in that area. So they just need to be sure that you are teachable and you have the capacity to learn and grow. And that's all you need to do. That's all you need to prove. You don't need to, I mean, you just cannot know it all. It's not possible, So, and that's all they want to see. That antecedent of this student has done this and has the capacity to grow and has the capacity to be taught. This student can learn, this student is teachable. That's all you need to prove. Nothing more.
Okay. Yeah, Bimi Abbas, can we have you? Are you there?
Okay, thank you very much. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, thank you. Scholar Aaron, thank you, AAP. We really appreciate your presentation and all the explanation you have been giving to us. Actually, I'm following your Twitter and I also want to use this medium to appreciate all your wonderful posts. And sequel to that, I've actually applied to Australia and I was the one that asked as regards the potential supervisor on the chat and you've attended the question. Thank you very much. I secured a potential supervisor some months back. However, because I've not completed my master's program, I couldn't apply for this September round. So I want to ask now, I don't know, maybe other applicants may also be here. Is it compulsory one should have a master's degree certificate on ground prior to your application? Because my intention was, I want to use my master's transcripts to apply. However, I've not finished my program, my master's program. So do you know if that's applicable in other schools, that one have to have your transcript complete, your certificate complete, finish your program prior to applying for PhD program? Or do you think there are ways one can go about it that prior to finishing your master's program, you can push forward an application for PhD? Because that was what affected me the last time. And he told me that probably I should wait for the next round. So, and even the next round, which he gave me, was around February. And by February, I wouldn't have finished my program by then. So I'll be finishing my program around June next year. So I was targeting maybe around September. So, so I'm looking at the possibility. Is it possible one can apply with master's transcripts alone without having a master's degree? Because by then I'm yet to complete my program for my master's program. Thank you.
Okay. So there are ways around this, and congrats on securing a supervisor. That's a very, very important first step. There are ways to go around it. If you are applying for a PhD degree and you have not completed your master's, usually, when you lodge in for an application, one of the most important documents is your transcript. They just have to see a transcript because that is what tells them that you have actually done that course. You might have a certificate, that's good, but they have to see a transcript. Most times they have to see a transcript, in my experience. So if you have not completed that degree and you don't have a transcript, then I don't know if there are some concessions that some school, I don't want to speak in all confidence because, this process, there are things that people have some experiences that you just don't know. You'll be wondering, and they give you admission. Are you serious? So it happens. But
sorry to cut short. I have transcripts. Yeah. I have a transcript. In fact, it's just only one course that is left undone, but I've done about every other courses. So transcript is on ground. It's only the certificate that is not yet on ground.
So you have a transcript, but you just don't have the certificate.
Exactly.
Okay. So that's good then. I think that should pass. You are able to make a case, through your supervisor to say, this is the case, this is what is happening. And then the supervisor is able to advise better. If you have a transcript, share with the supervisor and say, this is the situation on ground. this is what I have, or this is what I have. Sometimes the supervisors are able to advocate on behalf of the student, because the supervisor literally is in charge of you when you get admission. So everything that happens, everything I have to do now in my school, I have to go through my supervisor. If I put in any application, it has to go to my principal supervisor first. She has to approve. In fact, if I want to apply for anything, the first thing they will ask me, have you discussed with your principal supervisor? Until she approves for most of the things, it won't go to the next level. So discuss with the supervisor, say, this is what I have on ground, this is the transcript. Of course, you have to be very transparent about it. I don't have a certificate because of this, because of that, but I have my transcripts. Will this fly? Am I able to apply through this? Some universities are firm, but if they can see, you know, you actually did those courses, then that might suffice. I'm not sure, but that's what you need to take up with your supervisor. Another way around it is some supervisors might say, okay, because, or some universities might say, because you do not have a certificate, or maybe a transcript, if you don't, in your case, you have a transcript, because you don't have let's say they say you actually need a certificate. Some universities, or some universities and some lecturers or some academics might say, come in and start an MPhil. So an MPhil, Master's Philosophy, a Master's by Research. You know, Master's by Research, just a different name. Most Australian universities call it Master's MPhil. My university called it MPhil. They will say, come in and start an MPhil. And instead of, so an MPhil is 2 years, basically, right? A PhD is between 3 to 4 years, depending on what you're doing, and some, if you've got delays and all of that. But 4 years, 5 years, between 3 to 5 years, depending on what you're studying and your institutional funding. Some universities say, come in and start an MPhil. Some supervisors say, come in and start an MPhil. And because you're starting an MPhil, your bachelor's degree will be what will be used, right? So you come and start an MPhil. An MPhil is usually 2 years. Now, as a PhD student, and as an MPhil, as a PhD student, when you start your PhD, you do what is called, obviously, many people might be aware, but just to mention, you do what is called a confirmation in the first year of your PhD. So when you start a PhD, you are usually just a PhD student. It's like you are still testing the waters. You're a PhD student, but you are not there yet. You have been accepted, but you know, we're not sure of you yet. That is what it means. After the first year, you do what is called a confirmation. In that confirmation, you come with your work in the presence of a panel, professors and everybody, and you defend your work and explain what you've done in the last 1 year and how you're going to proceed with that work. If they are satisfied, they now confirm you officially as a PhD candidate. That is when you know that, yes, I have arrived. In a way, right? You know that, okay, now I have been accepted fully. As a MPhil student in my university, in the first year as well, because you're also doing research, you actually do like a confirmation kind of thing as well. But if you start up if you enter the university and the understanding between you and supervisor is that, okay, I actually want to do a PhD, but because I don't have, you know, certain requirements, or sometimes some supervisors will even tell you, okay, because you don't have this publication or that, why don't you come and start off an MPhil and then you continue the PhD later? What happens is you will start as a MPhil student. Now, when it's 1 year, instead of you to do like a confirmation as an MPhil student, my universities and some universities, you do what is called an articulation seminar. You articulate as a PhD student. So what happens is you will come and defend your work, but in the last 1 year between you and supervisor, of course, you know that you are making the work look like a PhD work, strengthening all of the areas, making it more robust. In that 1 year, when you are now articulated, you continue now as a PhD student, not as an MPhil student. So instead of doing your 2 years MPhil, after 1 year, once you've articulated, you just continue as a PhD student. I have a friend in RMIT who did the same thing. He's already doing his PhD. The supervisor said, oh, I don't have funding now. Can you just come in, start up as an MPhil, and we can have conversation about you doing. And after 1 year, he continued as a PhD. So it's in his final year now. We studied together in the UK. So you have those kind of arrangements here in Australia. So it's worth having those kind of discussions as well. So I hope that kind of answers your question.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Yeah, somebody asked, I think Faith asked, sorry, just to address, how can we get the right agent contact? Usually it's on the university's website, or if they don't have like if it's not on the website clearly, email them to ask. Sometimes they have a directory somewhere that they can just share with you. But most universities that I know won't have it on their website. But again, remember to always ask, can I apply myself? I have 2 people who have gotten scholarships. They are coming to Deakin University and RMIT. Both universities, they have applied themselves. They didn't use agent. The university allowed them to apply themselves. And the university waived IELTS for them. They are coming in as MPhil students. I think they've both gotten visas, and they're just in the process of booking flights now to come to Australia. So yeah, some universities will actually allow you to apply yourself. So please ask, please always ask, because and please do not assume that agent, even if, and I need to say this again, I get very touchy when it comes to issues of agents. Even if you have the university say you must apply through agents, do not take everything the agents say, everything they say you just swallow. No, some agents are very exploitative. They would tell you, oh, you have to do this, you have to do this. And don't assume because you are discussing with an agent, you cannot email the school. If you are not clear about anything, please email the university. My agent, if I tell you the complaint I wrote about the agent, it's a 2-page long complaint. If I project the complaint for you guys here, I detailed everything of how I went through the agent first said, oh, Aaron, you cannot, when you're applying for Australian universities. In fact, to start off with, they didn't even know the scholarship that my university had. So I got the scholarship on the website, on jobs.ac.uk. And when I went to apply, my university said, oh, you have to apply through agents. I went to the agent and I said, please, I've gotten this, I want to apply for this scholarship. Can you please, my university say, I have to apply through you. What do I need? They told me to bring all of the things. I asked them, do I need to pay? They said, no, don't worry. First, we'll talk about that later. I said, no problem. We went through that process. And then when I applied, I sent my documents to them, they certified, and they sent off my application to the university. Later on, the agent came back to me and said, there are no scholarships available in this university. Even if there are scholarships, there are partial scholarships. I'm like, what do you even mean by partial scholarship? I went to the website, jobs.ac.uk. I sent the link to, I said, this is a scholarship that has been advertised. I said, okay, no problem. We passed that stage. We went to the point, sorry to bore you, but I need to paint this picture because this, the agent system is very, very crazy here. And so we got to the next stage where I had gotten admission, I had gotten scholarship. The agent said, I must apply for my visa through them. That was when I said, no, I do not want to apply for my visa through anybody. I want to apply for my visa myself. I have experience of getting scholarships. I know how to go through this. I want to apply myself. At the time, I already had friends who were already here in Australia and had applied for their visa. So I had that experience. And I said, I don't want to apply through the agent. They said, oh, you cannot, it's not possible. You have to apply through us. I emailed the school very quickly and I copied them. And I said, do this university mandate students to apply through agents? They replied, they said, no, you can, these are the discretion of the students. And I stopped, because I copied them in the email so they know that I know. We passed through that stage. They say, oh, even though the school has said that, but it's important that you apply through us because usually people get rejection rates. And at the time I wanted to apply to come to Australia with my wife, and they said, oh, if you apply with your wife, you're not going to get visa. And I said, that's not true. I have friends here in Australia who have gotten, they were here under my supervisor, they came with their family and said, I have to apply with my wife. I need to apply with my wife. And they said, okay, no problem, but you need $1 account to be able to pay visa fees. That is why we need you to apply. And then you have to pay the amount in USD, in USD. I said, no, I don't have to pay in USD. The Australian website say you pay in AUD, because if I pay in USD, it will be more. So why do I have to pay in AUD? They said, okay, no problem. You can now apply, but you need a dollar. I said, I don't need a dollar, and I can pay with my GT bank card. They said, no, that's not possible. That if you're applying with your wife, then you have to pay an extra amount. I went to the DHA website, and the DHA website said, if you are doing a PhD, if you're coming as a PhD student and you apply, you only apply for one application fee. Every other dependent under you does not pay anything because you are a postgraduate research student. You don't have to pay nothing. If you are doing an undergraduate or a master's that's not by research, dependents will have to pay other amounts. I copied that link and I sent, I said, okay, this is what you've told me, but this is what's on the DHA website. Can you please confirm to me that what you have said is correct or contradicts? I say, okay, that's fine. Now we got it wrong. But if you are following the story, you see that is how they rip off students. They will tell you this, they will tell you that. If you don't have information, you will blindly pay. So even if agents tell you to do this, in fact, at the end of the day, they say, you have to use an Australian, you have to pay with a dollar. You have a dollar account. It is from our dollar account we have to pay. I said, to start with, I'm not even going to apply through you. But since you said I need a dollar account, I called my friend who was in Australia. I said, please send me the details of your bank card. The details. Once I get to the payment page, if I cannot pay with my Naira account, I will use your details and I will refund you in Naira. I got to the page and I paid with my GT bank account. I didn't even have to use my friend account. When I finished, I came to Australia. They say, oh, Aaron, can you please send us a picture of you and a testimonial of you, of how we helped you? I say, people did not help me to do that. The only reason I applied through you was because I was mandated to apply. There was no reason there. And the woman who was in charge at some point, so when you apply, you get a confirmation of enrollment. And because I was applying through them, every of my document was being sent to them. So they sent my confirmation of enrollment to them. Without a confirmation of enrollment, you cannot apply for visa. I called them and I said, hey, my confirmation of enrollment, have you received it yet? They said they're still working on it. I called the school. I didn't even email the school. I called the school from Nigeria. I said, hey, I've applied for this. I'm trying to apply for my visa. My course starts very soon. I just want to be sure that my confirmation. They say, oh yeah, we sent it to your agent already. I called the agent and I said, the school have said they have sent it to me. And they said, no, we're still working on the process. I said, okay, no problem. I emailed the school and I copied them. And I said, please, can you advise this agent that whenever there is any interaction between the school, and can you advise them to please copy me in emails so that I will know? They were very, very upset with me during the application, but I needed to be in charge of it. At the end of it, the woman said she's not going to send me my confirmation of enrollment. And I asked her, why is that so? She said, oh, the school has nothing to do. I've been proving that I know too much of these things, that anybody I want to call, if I like Ashko anybody, she's not going to send me my confirmation of enrollment. And at the time, my scholarship did not cover my wife. So we had to pay part of the health insurance. And at the time we paid about 2 million in Naira to cover my wife's health insurance. And once you pay that amount, it shows on your confirmation of enrollment. I say, are you aware that I've paid over 2 million for this health insurance? I need to even see my enrollment to be even sure it is there. They say, no, if I like, I should call him. I say, oh, so you really actually want me to inform the school that I have not received? Say, yeah, if I like, I should call anybody. I say, okay, no problem. I say, you see, in my line of job, my specialty is sending emails. So don't worry, I will get back in touch. I composed a very long email. Before I hit the send button, the woman called me. She said, Aaron, I'm sending you a confirmation of enrollment now. It was a very funny process. But yeah, I went through it. So my boring story is, please, if you're applying to agents in Australia and they tell you you cannot do this, don't take it. Don't listen. Confirm. Reach out. I mean, you've contacted, there are a lot of people. Reach out to people. Is this true? Is this true? Email the school. Is this true or not? They rip off students a lot. I hear stories of, even now, when I speak to people who are applying for visas, they will tell you, if you apply for visas with your wife or your partner or anybody, you will not get visa. It's not true. Australia encourages people to come with family. They know you are coming to do an intensive degree. How can you come and stay only you? It's not possible. If you have a family, a husband, a wife, children, they encourage you to come with them. If you have, in fact, you're even on scholarship, is even easier. Your case is different. Then you are encouraged. So please, if agent asks you they say A, before you agree with that A, confirm from somebody or email the school and ask the school. Very important. Sorry for my boring story. I get touchy when it comes to issues of agents. They are just very horrible people, some of them.
Let me just ask this question. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, in your cycle, at least you spent some years now in Australia. From your experience, what can you say are the major reasons why people don't get admission to, like, those are the mistakes people make in the course of applying that have made them not secure the admission? Can you itemize them so that people would avoid them?
Yeah, those mistakes usually would be unconvincing statement of purpose. So maybe you want to do a master's by research and you have not convinced them enough that you have research capacity to do that research. If it's a research program and it's even a scholarship, they are going to pay you to do it. So they need to be sure that they are not going to waste money. So if you don't itemize clearly or show that you've got research potential, like I said, some of the things we do as students back in school, we think they're not strong to be on our COC. Oh, it was just the lab, we're going to only for 1 hour. The Oyibo man where they here no say na 1 hour. They don't know. You went there and did it for 1 hour, but the experience you have garnered, the academic does not know is 1 hour. And it's not like you write 1 hour. No, they have to sell your story very creatively. You see, the lab or when we go say, it's not like we do anything, we just stand around the table. Nobody knows that, until you tell them. So people don't, unconvincing stories about research experience, if you don't sell that story about your research experience, that's, some people don't get admission with that. That's a common flaw. Incomplete documents, I've had situations where people apply through agents, the agent do not put in some documents and they reject them admissions. And that is why you need to always check with agents, always check with them and ask them, if you are sending emails to school, please copy me. The ones that will refuse to copy, if an agent sends email to university and does not copy you in, just know that those are dubious agents. That's a red flag, because if they are transparent, they will copy you in every email. So your admission, you need to be in the know of everything. So these are some. So incomplete documents, unconvincing statements of purpose. If you don't have a transcript, for instance, that's another red flag. These are the common ones that come to mind, honestly, in terms of not getting admission that I can think of now.
Has there been any case of someone getting admission and getting visa denial?
Oh, of course. Yeah. 100%. Yes. In fact, I got an email last week from a student who is currently going through this process. And this is even in my university with the horrible agent I just spoke about, unfortunately. So she got admission, she paid money, and this is not even a scholarship. She's funding herself. And then the agent did not didn't attach a particular document. Her visa is currently denied. Yes, and that's why you need to check with agents all the time. See, literally, if you are thinking Australia, literally you have to be a pain in their ass. Sorry for my language, but you have to choke them. Literally, some of them will not like it, but it is your admission, it is your life. If you're even paying money, it's even worse. If I was not even on a scholarship, my agent would have been seeing me in her dream. She was even fortunate that I was even on a scholarship. If I was even paying money, even the small 2 million I paid that time was for health insurance, If I was actually paying my school fee, she will see me in her dream, So you just have to be on top of the game. So there are situations like that where people apply. And sometimes it's not the fault of the agent. Sometimes it's, so when you apply for visa here, there is what we call a genuine temporary entrance requirement. So it's like an SOP where you write and convince immigration that you are going to go back to Nigeria. You are a genuine immigration, you're a genuine immigrant and you're going to come study on genuine purposes. And when you finish, there's a potential of you. So you tell them your plans, basically. If your plans are not, I've seen one that was rejected recently as well, and they said they are not convinced that he will go back to Nigeria when he finishes, because they said the economic things, what did they even cite? Like there are more opportunities here in Australia than Nigeria. Of course, we know that. So sometimes it's about what do they expect in the first place? And then sometimes it's about how you actually sell that story. I think that maybe I didn't sell it rich enough, and that's why some of those didn't come. So it's very important that, when you write these essays, have conversations with people, see what they've done, see what, you can do differently. It's very, very important.
Yeah, I think there are many questions on the chat box.
Yes. So somebody said, yes, Gbemi has mentioned about the issue of dependence. Yeah. You spoke about paying over 2 million for your dependent. Does that mean that the RTP scholarship doesn't cover your spouse or dependent? Mine did not. Some will cover. My friend who has just started his PhD in Griffith University is on a PhD just like me. The school paid the health insurance for the wife. I've got somebody who is coming for an MPhil, Masters by Research. She has just applied for her visa. Her school paid health insurance for her and her husband as well. So you remember I mentioned that the school decides how they want to administer the funding. They might say, I'm going to pay your health insurance, we're going to pay your stipends, we're going to pay health insurance, for just you. Some will say we're going to pay health insurance for you and all your dependents. If you have children, they're going to pay everything and even give you relocation allowances. Sometimes the school might not do that. Some of the school might say, okay, we're going to pay this. And sometimes supervisors might then say, okay, I'm going to top up this amount just to support you. So in my case, the scholarship didn't cover my wife at the time. So my school were paying my health insurance. It was $3,500 for the 5 years period my visa was going to be. And a couple cover for health insurance in 2019 was about $11,000. So we had to pay a difference of $8,000 to my institution. So what we did, I paid $8,000 to my university. My university put the money together and paid to the health insurance. So as far as the health insurer was as far as they know, it is my school that was paying, and that's another thing. The agent said, oh, you can use any agent, you can use any health insurance at all. You don't have to use the one your university say you should use. And if I had done that, it would have been very troublesome for me. When I spoke to other people, they say, no, pay to the school. The school said, if you want, you can pay to us and we'll pay to the health insurer, or you can decide to pay to yourself. I opted for paying to my university. So I paid $8,000 to my university. They paid the $11,000 to my health insurance. Now the implication was, my wife, we came in and my wife was pregnant. When we came into Australia, she was pregnant at the time. And child delivery is very expensive. So if you don't have, that's why if you don't have insurance, you wouldn't get visa. And that's another thing. You have to have health insurance, else you wouldn't even get visa. Now the point is, one night in the hospital can be as expensive as $2,500. It can be that expensive. That is why health insurance is a no-brainer. You just have to have health insurance. You cannot come without health insurance. And now the point is, if I did not pay the health insurance, some health insurance have what they call a waiting period. So they have waiting period for certain things. So some health insurance will say there's a waiting period for pregnancy and delivery of a child for 1 year. What it means is that within the first 1 year, you shouldn't get pregnant, or your wife shouldn't be pregnant. She can, or you can have babies, but the health insurance would not cover it. You have paid health insurance. That's the complication. You have paid health insurance, but there's a waiting period of 1 year. Because there's a waiting period, if you have a child within that 1 year of waiting period, you will have to cover the expenses. One night in the hospital can be as high as 2,500 Australian dollars or 3,000 Australian dollars. Very expensive and outrageous amount. Now, health insurance for one person for 5 years was $3,500. Imagine paying for one night $2,500. It's a sick amount. Now, if I had listened to my agent and I had paid choosing my health insurance, it would have been catastrophic for me because I paid through my university. Some universities have arrangements with health insurance. Waiting period do not apply. So I left Nigeria July. When I got here, we noticed, oh, my wife, madam, was pregnant. She came into Australia pregnant. It means that she had to deliver in the first few months that, you know, she was here. And I was going crazy. I was running mad, you know, felt that the world was ending, literally. And we asked around, they said, oh no, you don't have waiting period, of course, because you applied through the university. And that was a relief. That's another red flag with agents. Please always keep an eye on agents, very important. So yes, about the RTP, I had to pay that amount because it didn't cover it. Some funding will cover it, some will cover everything. So it depends on what you have. About test scores, yes. IELTS or TOEFL, some universities will insist you have it. Some universities will take just a letter from a university to say, okay, yeah, I studied in English, you know, English. Two students that were coming to Deakin and RMIT universities didn't take IELTS. The universities allowed them to, they waived that for them because they studied in English in Nigeria. So always ask, even if the university say you have to provide it, ask questions. Can this be waived? I got an agent contact and he said he's not to be paid anything until admission is given. From your experience, how real is that? Of course, yes, that's very real. Some agents are that very transparent. They'll tell you from the outgo. But it'll be important to also ask the agent, when you eventually get the admission, what do they charge? Ask them just to be sure that when you get admission, they will not come and charge you 1.5 million. Some of them are very terrible like that. So yes, just ask more information about that. I think those were the questions. Yeah, I think I've responded to most of the questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No worries.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I
Yeah,
can.
we can.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Scholar Aaron.
Mm.
I'll be following you on Twitter, and it's a very, very good privilege to talk to you today. Now, I want to ask about post-study. What about post-study for master students or PhD students? Is there any post-study
Oh,
option?
absolutely. Absolutely. There's this, it's guaranteed. Once you do a master's or a research PhD here, there's no gamble. You're sure you get it most times. Of course, if you obey the law and you do all that is required.
Like
You
how
get
many
post-study
years?
visa.
Okay. Like
So
how many years?
currently, if you do a master's, you get 3 years. It used to be 2 years. You get 3 years if you do a master's currently. If you do a PhD, I have heard that you get up to 4 years. I have not had anybody around me who finished the PhD and actually applied. Most of my friends who finished PhD are already permanent residents. So, but I've heard it's 4 years. But because of the skill shortage in Australia, recently there was a job summit that was done. And there has been a proposition to increase the post-study visa just to ensure that they fill in the skill shortage gap in Australia. The current proposition, which is being considered, they propose that they will do it. They're just setting up structures on how that will happen. The current proposition is that if you do a master's in certain courses, now those certain courses are what we don't know yet, you might be able to get post-study visa will be between 3 to 5 years. So it means that some courses will get up to 5 years if you do a master's. If you do a PhD, you can get up to 6 years of post-study visa. So because of the skill shortage, that's the new proposition. But currently what is on ground is the certain one is master's student gets 3 years. PhD student get about the 3 or I think 4 years. But the proposition to raise that is in the works, and we don't know how that is going to happen. Hopefully into the new year, we'll find out what is going to happen. But currently students are working on limited hours. And if you followed me, of course, on Twitter, I've mentioned this several times that, you know, even for people who don't get scholarship, they're able to work and pay their fees here because, I mean, student gets, you know, you work and you make good money depending on what jobs you are doing as well. That is, people don't get scholarships. But yes, that's what is obtainable at the moment with post-study visas. Yes.
Felix, can we? Felix,
Good evening, everyone.
Yep.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Okay, good evening, boss.
Yes, evening, Felix.
I don't know if you still remember me. We talked some time last year when you want to do your HIV project in Nigeria that I link you up to some doctors.
Yes, I remember Felix. When I saw the name, I'm like, yes, I know this name. Yes. Thank you very much.
Okay, sir. Okay, there's this scholarship I'm currently pursuing in Japan. Although I was nominated by my ministry. So my what I had in mind is I want to say what I have in mind so that you will discuss, you will advise me on that part.
Yes.
Is a 3-year MPH program, 2.5 years plus 6 months internship.
Okay.
So my plan is the rule is that when you get over there, you cannot invite your spouse or your direct relations after 6 months.
Okay.
So my plan is if everything goes perfectly, I want to that when we get there, after that 6 months, I will invite her. Then we'll give birth there.
Okay.
So I want to know if there is what I should do on this regard. Is there any repercussion? Is there any advantage if it happens this way?
And this is Japan, you said?
Yes.
You know, these very conservative countries. I'm very careful about them.
You're actually correct.
Yes, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of experience with Japan. So again, I have to tread cautiously in what I say. But
yes,
Japan, China, those places are, they're places that we need to think twice about them in terms of some of those things. Because, for instance, I have a friend who has just finished his PhD and he has just started a postdoc in the US. And as PhD students, they cannot even work to start with. They can't even work. But in Australia, for instance, as a PhD student, you are allowed to work unlimited hours. I mean, you can work and kill yourself if you want to. Just make sure you're not falling behind in your studies. Yes. I mean, some universities will give you, if you're on scholarship, they will say, okay, you can't work for certain, they will give you restrictions. Like my university give restrictions. But PhD students are allowed to work unlimited hours. So, but you go to places like China, they say, oh, no, you can't even work at all. You just go to the lab, 9 to 5. I mean, I would draw. I personally, my kind of person, I would have, I wouldn't even graduate to start with. That is, I will end up, I might drop out, but that's my person. I'm that lazy. So regarding that, I will honestly say, if you cannot, the fact that they say in 6 months, just check again with other students, see if there are people who have gone there. So you're doing an MPH for 3 years.
2.5 years.
Okay.
Then 6 months internship.
Okay. I mean, just check, to be honest, because those are very conservative, countries in terms of some of these things. My best bet, because I don't have experience in terms of Japan, just check to see students who have gone there for those courses. I'm sure you'll find either Nigerians or people on the course or people around, just to get an idea. That would be the best way. It is the best strategy rather than even reading on a website. Just find out from people, because it's just it's good to be careful, because this is not just you now. Because if you're also you're going with your wife and family, then it's more than just you. So you have to tread carefully. That would be my tip.
Yeah, I think scholar Samuel can say something on that.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, from my own point of view, any of these Asian countries, I would actually suggest that the person should think twice on the wife, because I'm currently studying in South Korea, and I understand the way things are like. They are kind of, how will I put it now? They have this kind of control on immigration, on the number of people who comes in. Though they might invite your wife, but having added, how will I put it now, a new offspring coming up, it might be on your account, and it won't be a good thing. You run into serious debt while studying. If it was you
No, it's a
coming
fully
with your wife, it would be better.
it's a fully funded
I know.
program.
What I'm saying is, do you have a knowledge of the health expenses?
Not yet.
Do you get my point?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the issue. Health here in Asia is also very as expensive as what we have in the US and other countries. It's quite expensive, and most of their citizens actually dwell on loan. So, and it won't be actually very good. I'm not discouraging. Like you said, you can always
No.
ask from people who have actually been to that place. But from my experience in Asia, in South Korea to be precise, health is very, very expensive. So I'll just say you should treat caution.
Yeah, very important to keep that in mind, Felix. Very, very crucial. So just think on that and see how many people you can speak to again, just to confirm. But those countries, yes, South Korea, China, Japan, those countries, one is you have to be always very careful with things like that.
Okay. Okay, so my please, I would like to connect with you after now. I don't know if I can get your contact or Twitter handle so that I can talk more since we.
Myself?
Yes, Samuel, please.
Yeah. Fascist is Samuel. I'll type my name on the chat box. You can contact me through LinkedIn, and I'll respond. I'll be glad to.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah, you can answer the questions.
Yeah, so I've seen a few questions here. I'm afraid that might have to start wrapping up. It's past 1 a.m. here in Australia, so I think I'm beginning to feel like I need to shut down. But so we'll just attend to some of these questions. So please, can you give some benefits of studying in Australia, especially as a married person? Also, post-study opportunity and citizenship. Or as a married person is very important here. I'm married. So it's lots of benefits. The fact that, to start with, I'm a PhD student. I'm working. I'm a PhD student who is studying, and my wife can work and support me and the family. So that's one benefit. These days I just wake up and I just see a lot, from my wife, and she just puts rent money or something of that sort, or spending money. I'm enjoying in terms I get those a lot. So that's one benefit, because you get that opportunity that obviously, if not like single persons don't get a lot of benefits, but just speaking in relation to the question that if there are two people together, you tend to go faster in a way because you can do this, and your partner, your wife or husband is able to support in another way. So I go to university and I do all my stuff. So the truth is, if you're a married person and you've got children and you're on a scholarship, the scholarship stipends is always not enough. It's not. And I'll be very blunt. I get, for instance, let's be very practical. I get, for instance, 1,000 plus a fortnight. My rent alone is over $400 a week. Childcare is, yeah, of course. Childcare, I could have stayed, of course, in a cheaper place, but yes, that's it. If you're married, you need a bigger place because you've got family, you've got kids. Some people, I've got friends who live, for instance, that are single, you live in shared apartment, you pay $100 and something a week, but I pay over $400 a week. Childcare is there, I pay over $200 a week. And so if you put that, we're running to $600 a week, right? And I get 1,000 plus a fortnight. That is in 2 weeks. So you see that my stipends does not even cover. Now, we've just talked about rent and childcare, right? And the childcare is just for 2 days. We've not talked about nappy. We've not talked about baby wipes. We've not talked about baby food. We've not talked about sending money home if you have to. We've not talked about other insurance. We've not talked about internet. We've not talked about energy. We're not talking about all of those things. But here in Australia, the minimum wage is good. if you work, you're able to get money to compensate for to live a decent life. So if I'm married, my wife then supports the family in that way because she's able to work and take up some responsibilities. But if I was just alone, then that might be not possible for me in that way. And then of course, if you've got two people who are, we've got stipends from my school and then work, you're able to get more money and then save up more and do other stuff more. So those are some of the benefits of being a married person. You've got all of those things, but the minimum wage in Australia is good in a way. So if you've got a partner who understands, and of course you understand yourself, the partner is able to support and help you go. So here I'm just, I'm focusing on my study, and my wife is able to support the family, of course, by working and paying most of our bills. So that's some of the advantage. Remember that you're also able to work as a PhD student. You can work unlimited hours. I've got work restrictions in my university, so of course I don't do some of those. I don't do that. I do a little teaching in school. So sometimes I take up sessional work as a sessional academic, and I do teaching in school or marking, and I get some money from there as well. But I've got PhD friends who don't have work restrictions, for instance, and I'll give you an example. I've got a friend who don't have work restrictions in his university. His wife is working. He's working. He's doing his PhD, and the least they make in a fortnight. So the least they make in a fortnight is $7,000. That's the least. A fortnight, that's in 2 weeks, because he works and makes like $4,000. The wife works and makes like $7,000. His scholarship comes in at $1,000 something. So we're saying $8,000 a fortnight. So that's good money, isn't it? So he's able to do. I mean, the last time I spoke with him, what they've had in savings already is over $300,000. He would have rounded up his PhD now, but because he can work, Australia doesn't work unlimited hours, and his PhD is progressing. His wife is working. He's working, and imagine having $300,000 in your account. That's a lot of money. If you do the mathematics, I think I don't know where that is coming from, but I think the money Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, yeah. So so that's a very practical way of how married people can thrive here, depending on what the circumstances are. But yeah, other benefits, of course, studying here, like the person has mentioned. Post-study opportunities, I've mentioned that. Faith asked that question, and I've tried to clarify it on the number of years citizenship. So the way it works in Australia is, if you have lived here so to be a citizen in Australia, you would have to have lived here for 4 years. One of those years should be as a permanent resident. So for instance, I've been in Australia for the past 3 years. If I finish my PhD and I become a permanent resident, if I apply and I become a permanent resident, I just need to leave to have a permanent residency status for 1 year, and then I automatically qualify to be a citizen. So I just need to lodge for an application, and then, I mean, it's guaranteed. Once you're a permanent resident, you spend 4 years, you get it. You might just, it's a sure 4 years. One of those years should be a permanent resident. Some of my friends who were PhD students, they started a new visa stream, a global talent visa. Some of my friends who were still PhD students applied. I didn't apply at the time. I wish I did. If I did, I would have been a permanent resident now, or thinking of being a citizen. But I've got friends who were been here maybe since 2018. One of them just finished his PhD actually, and he applied for the global talent visa. He's been there for 1 year. He's actually going for a citizenship interview at the end of the year. So he's just been here for like 4. He came to Australia 2018, and by the end of this year, he will be an Australian citizen already. I have other friends like that. So it's almost sure in terms of citizenship. 4 years, one of those years should be as a permanent resident. And there are different visa routes, of course, to apply to be a permanent resident. I think I've addressed that. Is the application for 2023 still on, or was the application months? Again, if you're applying for the research training program, remember I said you have to apply to get a supervisor first. You can do that all through the year. Just apply to get a supervisor. Once you get a supervisor, they're able to advise you on what particular the application period for that particular school, or you just check the particular university's website. They're always there when it's open. Is there a platform where you can share with us updates and links, admission process? Yes. I don't know if this, I shared some earlier already. I'm not sure if the person joined, people who joined late are able to see but I will just copy again.
Chat box.
Yeah, I'll just copy again and I'll share. There are different platforms. And if you follow me on Twitter as well, sometimes I do a lot of retweets. These days I'm very busy with school, so I do more retweets. But yeah, I've just reshared about 3 links now that will help in. The second one, which is studiesinaustralia.com, you can just go in there and put in your course and the state you want to study in, and you give you suggestions of scholarship. That's a very handy website. But those websites will give they're targeted websites that can share opportunities, get opportunities in Australia. Can I have your contact, please? Yes, my website, just go to my website. And so my website is, so just my 3 names actually, and I'll put it here again. Apologies, these days I am super busy. I'm writing on my thesis, so it's a very, very busy time for me to. Sometimes it takes me a while to reply to. That's why I prefer emails now, because my social media, I log off at certain times. So you might send me DMs and I would miss it. But if you send emails, I always see the email. So it's best. So if you go to my website, there's an email address on my website, you're able to reach me and send me an email. And then we can take it off from there. Again, people might ask me for reviews. Apologies, I will not be able to take reviews at this time because I'm writing on my thesis and it's a very critical time for me. But yeah, that's my website, my email address. Of course, you feel free to connect with me across all social media platforms. I'm everywhere. The only place I'm not on, I think, is TikTok, and I don't know how that works. Anyways, TikTok, Snapchat, and yes, I think TikTok, Snapchat. I don't know which other ones, but I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm on Twitter. I'm on those 4 platforms. Use the same name, Aaron Akpu Philip. And then, of course, my personal website. You can also reach me through that. Yeah, so is there a career path, immigration opportunity in Australia as well? I would like to apply for both scholarship and also job opportunities. Yes, if you're looking for jobs in Australia, this website will help. So I think Indeed, let me just check. Let me be sure that that's the website. So the Indeed website will help as well. But again, you have to check. You have to check to be sure that, the job you're applying for. Yes, okay, so I got it wrong. So it's AU. So that is one website you can get a job on. Another website is Seek. I just put that website, seek.com.au. Their website that you can also apply for jobs in Australia. Again, if you are looking out for jobs, just look at, there are different types of visa streams in Australia. So you look at what particular visa you want to apply for. Usually the easiest route for most people is to come in as students and then apply for post-study visa. And while they are here, they are able to do many other things. But if you're looking for job opportunities, those websites will help. Just put in the search bar what jobs you are looking for, and then you're able to apply as well. Yes, I think.
Bemi Abbas, can we have you for the last time?
Yes, okay, Bemi, yes.
Thank you for having me for the last time. Sorry, I just want to ask, when Faith was asking a question as regards post-study visa. My question is related to, you as a PhD student now, is it a must you wait to finish and then apply for post-study visa, or can you, while you are doing your PhD, can you just apply for PR directly, as in prior to you finishing your PhD, and then you apply for your permanent residence, and then probably from there the citizenship? That's number one. Then secondly, I also want to find out, I had a news recently that the number of working hours for the dependent or spouse would actually be reduced, and it won't be unlimited working hours. Is that how true is that, please? Starting by next year.
Okay, if you are doing, maybe I know you are thinking of a master's by research and PhD. If you are doing master's by research by PhD, that does not concern you. That will not touch master's by research or PhD. The original plan, what has always been there, is if you are doing a master's or a bachelor's, you have to work only 40 hours a fortnight. That is 20 hours every week. If you're doing a master's by research or a PhD, you don't have work restrictions. Your partner or wife or husband don't have work restriction as well. So if they revert that by 2023, it's going to revert back to what it was. It means that students who are doing masters, not by research, or bachelors, will have a limit of 40 hours. If you're doing a higher degree research, which is called HDR, if you're a HDR student, higher degree research student, you don't have work restrictions. It means your partner, your wife or husband will not have work restrictions as well. So that is for that.
Okay, meaning that the new rule won't affect the HDL students.
Usually, yeah. But what my understanding, what I have known is that during COVID, they lifted work restrictions for every student everybody was working unlimited hours. But before then, HDR students were able to work unlimited hours. So what the rule is saying is that by the time we get to July 2023, we will revert to where we were, meaning we will revert to where the fact that master students will have work restriction 40 hours. HDR students don't have. If you look at your visa, there's a place, a caveat where you write, if you're doing a doctorate or this, it does not apply to you. So if you're doing a doctorate or master's by research, it does not apply. So in July, every other student, of course, will go back to 40 hours a week. If you're doing a PhD or master's by research, and including your wife or husband or anybody, your dependents, you won't have that work restrictions, basically. That's what I know, except if that changes. Of course, these guys, they change things very quickly, isn't it? So we'll see what happens in 2023. But to the best of my knowledge, that is what we're reverting to in 2023. About your first question, in terms of permanent residency, you can apply for permanent residency while you are still a student. And I made mention of it as well to say, I had a few friends while they were PhD students, they applied for permanent residency. They started a new visa route, which was a global talent visa. They applied that. And all of my friends who applied at the time are already permanent residents. I think all of them have qualified for citizenship already, and they're just filing in. Some have already applied and have gotten citizenship, gotten passports, and some of them are just going for interviews now to apply. And if I had applied with them, remember they were saying, Aaron, let's apply. I said, no, I've just started my PhD, because I started in 2019. I'm like, no, I want to collect my data first and all of that. I regret that I didn't apply at the time, because if I had applied, of course, I would have gotten it. But because all of them who filed in, they got it. And once they got it, it became more difficult. So people who had master's degrees could apply. Now, they moved the bar. They said you have to have a PhD. No, they said you have to be in the final year of your PhD to apply for that particular global talent visa. And when I got to the final year, I filed in my application. They said, no, you have to have completed the PhD now. So now if you don't, they keep moving the goalpost, you know? So yes, but there are other visa routes, of course. There are other types of visas that you can apply for. It's not just a global talent. We've got the 190 visa, we've got the 189 visa. So many types of visa now. And because Australia is really looking for people to come in now because of the skill shortage, they even give it at low points. So the cutoff point for most of the PR routes, the point-based one, global talent does not have any points. The point-based visas like the 189 visa, the 190 visa, those numbers I'm mentioning are types of visa subclasses. So 190, 189, 491, they are all types of visa. Those visas, the cutoff is usually 65. And in the past, you need to have up to 80, 90 to get invited. but a lot of people got invited at 65 points because Australia is really looking to bring in people in. So yeah, that's so yes, you can apply while you're still a student. Most of my friends that applied for the visas, some are citizens now, some are permanent residents. So yes. So yes, like I said, I'm sure I've addressed most of the question. I did not think that we'll stay this long. It's 1:21 a.m. here in Australia. So
yeah, we are very
now.
glad to have you here.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thanks a
It's
lot.
always it's always
also
a
around.
privilege.
It's also around of yeah.
Mm.
Yeah,
What
we
time
are
is
glad
there?
to have you.
What time
Yeah,
is?
I think it's also 12. It's 12:21. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Australia is Brisbane is 9 hours
ahead.
ahead. Mm.
Yeah. Thanks a lot
So,
for
yes.
having us, and we really appreciate. Thanks for giving out your best in this. And I think these calls to everyone that are looking up to Australia or any other country in the world, please, beyond getting all these tips, our goal is that we achieve our goals. So please, let's start sending the mails. Let's seek the potential supervisor, and we all wish success. And before we round off, we'll just make this note that due to the different academic engagements towards the end of the year, people are rounding off their PhD programs, we would be rounding off the webinar for this year temporarily. And by 2023, we'll kick off with the webinar of Study Abroad. We are glad you joined us. And for today's meeting, the link to our YouTube channel will be sent for you to rewatch and to share. Thanks a lot for having you, Scholar Faith and here, and everyone. Enjoy the rest of the day. Bye.
Thank you very much. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.
Right.